Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Vintage Motocross Q&A. I'm your host, Joe Abadi. Thank you for joining this evening. As always, I want to thank Jordan for being here as well, making this show as good as we could possibly make it for you. Let's get down to the starting line, brought to you by Motion Pro. I'll tell you a little bit more about what's going on with the show. And the next time, try this segment, the right tool for the right job. You're not going to want to miss this. Also in the Moto Showcase, a 1976 Suzuki RM370 that was sent in by Larry Manning. In the Here's the Problem segment, we've got a couple of different things going on there. One I'm excited to tell you about is how to straighten a fin on a bent cylinder, just like that there. In the What's at Work segment, we saw something go off this week on eBay, a 1976 Husky. I'm going to tell you more about that. 522 project continues this week. We're going to be showing you a little bit more about the ignition system and how you can do some things as well to make it look nice and neat and clean the way we're doing it on this bike. As always, I want to tell you to share the show. If you're watching on Facebook, please reach down onto your phone or in your computer. Tell some friends you're watching Vintage Motocross Q&A. And of course, if you're watching on YouTube, please comment AMSOIL. Comment AMSOIL on YouTube. Later on in the show, we're going to pick a random winner who's going to get some nice products, compliments of Russell Waters and AMSOIL. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's growing every week, and I'm really excited about that. Thank you, everyone who has subscribed so far. You'll be able to watch all the shows that we've previously done on Vintage Motocross Q&A and listen to the great interviews that I bring you on Sunday. Please subscribe. You'll get a little bell that goes off, tells you when we're live on YouTube. I want to thank our sponsors, AMSOIL, the first in synthetic oil since 1973, Motion Pro for all your controls and cables, specialized tools. Also, Full Circle Racing, Tom McAllister doing a great job for us. See Tom for spokes, lacing, truing on both vintage and modern bikes. Vinco, keep the ride going. Preston Petty, thank you, Paul Stannard, and my good buddy Mark Hildebrand at Nightmare Racing. In the Next Time Try This segment, I want to talk to you a little bit about the right tool for the right job. First thing I want to talk to you about is a little clutch cover just like this. And what I like to do to get out oil seals is use a tool that is shaped just like this. And I'll tell you why I especially like this one. It comes with a couple of different heads. So if you have a bigger oil seal, you could simply change the head and you'll be able to get your seals out. No more using of screwdrivers and things that are going to damage the seal or possibly cause some damage to the side of your case. This will work on any seal, any oil seal at all. That's a great way to get oil seals out with a little tool just like that. The next thing I want to discuss with you are dowel pins. This one happens to be 10 millimeters. The best way to get these things out is with a tool that looks just like this. It's a cullet, and they come in different sizes from 10 millimeter all the way up to 14 millimeter. It fits right over the dowel just like this. It's got a little screw on it. You tighten it up from the side. And in most cases, you could just take a little bar just like this, what comes along with it. You put it here through the cullet itself, and you could just twist it right out. Now, this kit also comes with a little piece like this, and it sort of resembles a slap hammer. And you put the bolt through here this way, and you screw it down inside that cullet just like that. The great thing about this is not only do you use it to get it out, but it's also an excellent way to get the little dowel back in too. This way, you get them down nice and tight. You don't want to have to hit them down with a little hammer, causing damage to the edge. So, the right tool for the right job, and this is a great way to do it with these tools I've shown you right here. I want to thank Vinco for sponsoring this segment. Vinco, keep the ride going. The tools that we just used in that segment were compliments of Motion Pro. Be sure to visit Motion Pro online at motionpro.com. In the Moto Showcase this week, a 1976 Suzuki RM370 that was sent in by Larry Manning. As Jordan goes through the slides, I'm going to tell you a little bit more about this great little bike that Larry sent us. And it begins with, it's a 1976 RM370A, originally purchased somewhere in Fullerton, California, around April of 1976 by a Howard M. Thompson. Larry explains that he still has the title for it. He believes it was only used as a trail bike. There is really no evidence that the bike was raced. It was in pretty nice condition when he got it. It was almost completely original and unrestored with the exception of the silencer. And he says that the rivet counters kind of beat him up over that a little bit. The front fender is at least a period correct Preston Petty mutter. I cleaned it thoroughly, replaced the oil seals with NOS Suzuki seals. I had to change the original tires in order to ride it because the old ones were just about petrified. This bike is not repainted. It's got the original seat cover, the original levers and grips, and as I mentioned, the original title from 1976. Larry loves this bike so much, he's got it displayed in his house. Larry, you are either recently divorced or have one of the most understanding wives that we know of on this show. All joking aside, Larry Manning, I want to thank you for sending in your beautiful 76 Suzuki RM370. I'm going to get you out some stickers from fastguystuff.com. If anybody else out there who's viewing the show tonight wants to have their bike featured here in the Moto Showcase, please get a hold of me. You can inbox me. We'll get your bike featured on the show, and we'll get you some stickers from fastguystuff.com. And remember, it could be a race bike, it could be a show bike, it could be a mini bike as well. Whatever is special to you that you think is going to display nicely on the show, I'd be happy to have it here. In the Here's the Problem segment tonight, which is sponsored by Motion Pro, let's take a look at the first question. Comes in from Oscar Gayton. I have a cylinder with a bottom fin that is bent inward. I'm debating the risk of trying to correct this without breaking it. Is there a safe way to straighten this out? Yeah, there is, Oscar, and I'm going to take a moment here to tell you about this. Here's a picture of a cylinder with a bent fin on the bottom. The way you're going to have to do this, okay, is to shore up the fins that are above it. In other words, you're going to have to mill down some aluminum or figure out a way to shore up the other fins, because you're going to be prying against that one that's on the bottom. And you don't want to bend the other ones. You're going to actually use them to pry against, to bend the, to straighten the bent one, to put it back into shape. Now, you're going to want to have this cylinder probably sitting in a vise someplace nice and secure, and you're going to have to heat up that bottom cylinder that you want to bend back into place. You want to heat it up with MAP gas. You don't want to use anything too hot. You don't want to use like a torch with oxyacetylene. Just use MAP gas. And you're going to want to use that MAP gas and get that fin nice and hot, but move that MAP gas tip all over that fin that you want to bend, okay? Now, when you get it all nice and warm, you're going to have to use something that's strong like a wedge. A steel wedge would be good, like this. This one happens to be rather large. You can use a big one like that as long as it fits between the two fins that you're going to be working on. You'll be able to get that in there. Keep that torch moving, put that wedge in there, keep the torch moving, keep everything nice and warm, and gently tap down on that wedge, and you'll begin to move that fin. Keep the torch moving. Tap it down a little bit at a time. When you get that fin back to where it was straight, the way it was originally, stop everything you're doing. Everything's going to be very hot, obviously. Don't touch anything. Let it cool off for a couple of hours, maybe longer. And when you go back, when you take that wedge out, your fin's going to be back in place again, just like you see it right down here in the picture. I've done this before. It absolutely does work. You're lucky that it's a fin that's on the bottom. You should be able to do it without any problem. Sometimes fins, well, I've done it where fins have been bent in between two, not just the last one or the one on top. But if you listen to me, take your time, use MAP gas and a wedge like that, you'll be able to get that fin back into shape. Oscar, thanks for the question. Jordan, what do we got next? Jack Dante, Joe, how can I positively identify my Honda CR125 as being a 1973? Were there replacement cases available for it? Yeah, Jack, there were. But the first thing you want to do, and the best way to identify this bike, is by the serial number on the engine cases. On a 1973, they look just like this. They're stamped into the case itself. They're not on a raised pad, which you're going to see in the next picture. 1974, they come like this. The serial number is in two lines, and they're on a raised pad the same way you see it right here. Now, also in your question, you asked, did they make replacement cases? Yes, they did. And they look like this. It's got that raised pad, but you're not going to see any numbers on them. Now, here's where you could have a little bit of research ahead of you or a little bit of a conflict. If you have a 1973 and it's got a blank pad like this, or you think it's a 73, it may very well be a 74. If you have the title that states that it's a 73, that's going to really be the defining document that's going to ensure you that it is a 1973. Other than that, everything else is going to look like a 1974. So, yes, they made replacement cases with no numbers. 1974s have two rows of serial numbers on a pad like that. 1973, all in one row. Jack, I want to thank you for sending in the question. Dan Valentino, Joe, can you suggest any tips on mounting a seat cover and foam to plastic, fiberglass, or a steel seat base? Yes, I can. The first thing you want to do is get fast tack trim adhesive like this. It's a 3M product. This is used to put weather stripping around doors of cars. It's extremely tacky, and when it dries, it's got a little movement to it, so it doesn't get hard when it dries, but it is extremely tacky, just like it says, okay? You're gonna want to put, let's spend a minute here. There's a couple of different types of seat pans. Let's deal with the plastic one first. If you have a plastic seat pan, you can staple your cover onto that. And if you have a foam that goes over the sides of the pan, you're not gonna have to worry about the foam moving on the pan while you're putting your seat cover on. If you do not have foam rubber in the cover, foam sides that come down at the edge of your seat foam, you're going to have to make sure that that foam is very stable on that seat pan. A Kawasaki 238 comes to mind when I think about this. You're going to still want to use fast tack trim adhesive on that. You're going to want to make sure your foam is stable on the pan so it doesn't move around after the seat cover's on. Now, let's move on to the next slide. This one, and you happen to see what I'm talking about here. Look in the picture, you could see the black seat base, but you could see the white foam, how it comes down the sides. That's going to prevent that foam from moving around on that pan. Not all foams have that. That's where you want to make sure they're glued down to the pan. If they're like this, gluing it down to the pan still isn't a bad idea, but there's less chance of that pad moving around or that foam moving around when you go to put your seat cover on. On a fiberglass base, which I don't have a picture of here, you're going to have to glue it. You're going to have to glue it to the base or use the trim adhesive like I showed you earlier. You can also glue it down with hot glue and then follow up with rivets. In the next slide, you'll see what we did here. We took that seat cover, laid it over the foam, laid it over the pan, but many of those little alligator triangle tangs that are on there, some of them were broken off. So we glued it, then we drilled holes, and we used rivets to hold it in as well. So it's glued down, then it has the rivets. You want to use something like this, a system like this, when you do it on a fiberglass seat pan. Or you could do it on a plastic one as well. But on metal, you're going to absolutely have to do it this way. So make sure your foam is glued down to your pan. Make sure you have everything centered on your seat cover, especially if it has a logo on the back. Make sure you line up the back first. And that's the way you want to attach foam or attach a seat cover to a pan. There is another method. It's a strip like this. And you could buy them separately. They come in 1-foot sections. And what you do is you can screw that thing to the side of your metal seat pan or your plastic one. Fiberglass, I don't know if I'd use it. Fiberglass is kind of thin, but you can screw that to the side of your seat pan. Then when you stretch your cover over, those prongs that you see sticking up are very pointy. You're going to push it over that, bend that prong down, and that's what's going to hold your seat cover in place. I'm not a real big fan of these. Some guys are. They work pretty well, though. I want to thank you for sending in the question, Dan. I hope that shed some light on it for you. Jordan, what do we got up next? Oh, last week we had a tip sent in. I think it was by Robert Oscar Pomeroy. He was talking about an air boot for Can-Am in particular. And in his situation, we were talking about using a CV joint boot like this. This one happened to come off of a 1983-84 Chevy Blazer, 4x4. This one goes on the front. Now, not all CV joint boots are created equal. When you go to an auto parts store, ask them to see the list of the CV joint boots that they have. They come in different lengths, they come in different openings on the ends. You're of course going to measure the bell on your carburetor, you're going to measure the opening of your airbox. Then when you look at that list of CV joint boots that they have like this, you'll be able to pick the one that's closest to that. So a little more information, additional information to the segment we showed you last week. We're going to take a commercial break right now. If you're still watching the show, which you obviously still are, don't forget to share it. We got a random AMSOIL winner coming up a little bit later in the show. And if you're on YouTube, comment AMSOIL.
Hi, I'm Jeff with Motion Pro, here to introduce you to the Pro Funnel today. Now the Pro Funnel is a very versatile funnel that makes maintenance tasks on your motorcycle easier, cleaner, and more efficient. Now as an overview, the Pro Funnel has a 1 liter capacity with clear graduation marks listed in ounces, cc's, as well as all the common premix ratios used for two-strokes in the power sports industry. Now diving into the key features of the Pro Funnel, first you have this integrated shutoff valve, which allows you to shut off or meter out the flow of fluid. This ball joint and extended spout allows you to get into tight areas. A powerful magnetic strip is convenient for storage on your toolbox or workbench. And this removable lid keeps dirt and debris out of the funnel. The Pro Funnel has a retail price of $32.99 and can be found at your preferred dealer nationwide, so go get yours today.
Hey, it's Scott Burnworth. I'm here at the SoCal Vintage MX Classic. We're going to have a great time. We have a huge turnout. We've got a lot of legends coming. We're doing a special Marty Smith tribute class. We're going to have a great time out here at Glen Helen, remembering a good friend in Marty and his wife Nancy. And we're going to have some fun vintage racing on a really nice track. Probably the biggest turnout we've had so far in 10 years. I want to thank everybody for coming out to the SoCal Vintage MX Classic, and if you missed it, you definitely got to be here next year.
SoCal Vintage MX Classic 11, my buddy Scott Burnworth, and of course his wonderful wife Debbie, did a wonderful job putting the race on down there this weekend. The Marty Smith Memorial Race went absolutely fantastic. There were so many people there to remember Marty and Nancy Smith, including Todd DeHoop, Rick Johnson, Tommy Croft, of course, Warren Reed, and so many more. I want to thank Jordan for being there this weekend and bringing us the footage for race day. In the What's at Work segment tonight, we take a look at a 1976 Husqvarna 360 WR. It sold on eBay just recently with a feedback, confirmed sale, just $2,000 in Arizona. This, of course, this segment is sponsored by Preston Petty Products. I'll be telling you more about Preston Petty Products in just a moment. But right now, I'm looking forward to telling you more about this 76 360 WR. It was a perfect restoration candidate and one of the best ones that I've ever come across. This is written, of course, by the person that was selling it. I was told the previous owner that the engine was currently in the frame is out of a 250 WR. It was removed at some point, but he kept the engine. It was replaced a 360 engine. Now, this bike was in absolutely amazing condition considering how old it really is. Yeah, there was some surface rust on the things, but the wheels looked great. The levers looked original. Everything really looked like it was in really perfect condition for a restoration, or this really could be a survivor candidate. What I would recommend doing is, of course, rebuilding the original engine that went in the bike, the 360, taking out the 250, maybe selling that or putting it on the shelf. This bike looked really nice in every way for just $2,000. And with 2 engines and 2 pipes to come along with it, I think it was a great deal for $2,000. I think anyone would agree. And that's what it is worth. It's certainly worth more than $2,000. And as I promised, Preston Petty Products. What do we got this week? 10% off across the board again. Front fenders, rear fenders, you got the headlight and the number plate, hats, grips, all sorts of things that are available through Preston Petty Products. And Paul, being the great guy that he is, he's going to be giving you a free t-shirt with every purchase. Inbox me, I'll give you the code. When you go to checkout, you put the code in, you're going to put in the size of your t-shirt as well. You're going to get 10% off on everything from Preston Petty. Thank you, Paul Standard, for all you do for the show. The 522 project continues. This week, we're going to be talking about the ignition system and a little bit about some things that you can do, whether you're working on your vintage classic or whatever it might be. Many times, as years go on, wires get frail. They wind up being taped over like this, and ignitions just get in pretty poor condition in general. Sometimes when that wiring harness that goes over it starts to dry out, when it's hard plastic to begin with, it just starts to crack. It begins to look like this, and, well, not very nice when you go to put your bike back together after you do some service on it. What we decided to do, after we got our ignition all cleaned up, just like this, was replace this wire harness right here. And what this stuff is called is PVC wire harness loom. Now, a mistake that a lot of people make is they forget to put the word PVC in, because when we think of PVC, we think of hard plastic that's used on sprinkler systems or to move air through a compressor system or something like that. But when you're looking for this stuff, you want to look for PVC wire loom. And it comes in different diameters, and you can cut it in different lengths because it comes in sections up to 10, 12, 15 feet. You could buy it as long as you want. Of course, take note when you're doing a job like this of how many wires you have in there. You want to get something that fits just loosely around there, not too snug, so you want to be able to feed your wires through there. Now, it does look a lot like heat shrink tubing. You don't want to use heat shrink tubing on your bike, especially where a set of ignition wires are going up maybe near the cylinder, although not touching it. It's close enough to it to where it's going to get hot. If it's heat shrink tubing, it is going to shrink. This stuff will not do that. Keep it far enough away from the pipe or any heat from the engine. It's going to look great when you put it on your bike. And you want to put it all together just like this. Get your ignition put back in the side of your engine the way I'm doing it here. I'll have to get back in here again at some point to probably check the timing again, but in the meantime I want to show you how well this wire looks on here. Follow up with our trick little ignition cover. So next time you might want to try that, and that's it for this week on our 522 project, which of course is brought to you by Full Circle Racing. The special that Full Circle Racing has been running with us is about to come to an end on October 31st. So you still got some time to get black or silver 19 or 21 inch rims for just $240. That's $50 off the regular price. It's made for all the most popular bikes, including Yamahas, Hondas, Suzuki's, Kawasaki, CZs, Husqvarna's, and Mako. Be sure to tell Tom McAllister when you call that you saw it here on the show to get that special. Full Circle Racing. And don't forget Full Circle for your modern bike needs too. He's got spokes, he does truing, he's got a variety of things going on up there. Tom McAllister, Full Circle Racing. Thanks for all you do for us here at Vintage Motocross Q&A. In the product spotlight, Nightmare Racing, the finest reproduction Kawasaki on the planet. Mark Hildebrand's been killing it for almost 20 years with the great shiny plastic of the KX world. He's got kits, he's got fenders that are sold individually, number plates, side panels, and he's got it for 1973 on up. He goes into the mid-80s. Be sure to visit Nightmare Racing on Facebook and online at nightmareracing.com for all your Kawasaki plastic needs. If you're doing a restoration, there's nobody else that you're going to want to use other than Nightmare Racing. Thank you, Mark Hildebrand. We're going to take a commercial break right now. When we get back, I'll have a little announcement on how we're going to do the AMSOIL giveaway because Susie isn't here with us tonight. So keep sharing it on Facebook, and if you're on YouTube, comment AMSOIL. We're going to have a winner, and I'll tell you about that when we return from this commercial break from Vinco.
Classic and vintage dirt bikes are more than a hobby. It's not just about the ride. It's about the work that goes in. The work that keeps you connected to the ride. It's about bringing the bike back to life and doing it with your own hands. It's about the adrenaline and adventure. And when it comes to putting all the pieces together, only Vinco knows the bikes and parts the way you do. Vinco, keep the ride going.
Okay, Susie's not here with us tonight, but we are going to pick a random share winner. We'll tell you who that is tomorrow on the page. So go to Vintage Motocross Q&A tomorrow morning by 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. I will have a post up there telling who the random share giveaway was. You're going to get a nice gift, compliments of Russell Waters and AMSOIL. This week in motocross history, in 1972, it was Aki Janssen who was actually tearing up America And the Trans AMA Series. Aki Janssen continued to march through America, this time winning the Trans AMA in Rio Bravo, Texas. Janssen will win the last 9 rounds of that series in a row, setting a U.S. record for consecutive pro motocross wins that will last, get this, up until Jeremy McGrath's run of 13 AMA Supercross wins in a row in 1976. Aki Janssen on that Mako was tearing it up in 1972. In 1978, it was Rex Staten, who also won his first national at Rio Bravo. Him and his Yamaha teammate Bob Hanna made history by winning the 78 Trans AMA Series, the first time an American had ever won the series going back to its genesis in 1970. Staten rode a Dave Osterman prepared OW39 works bike to a 1-3 finish that day to earn the overall win. British rider Graham Noyce was second on his RC450 Works Honda. Hanna placed third that day on a 420 Works bike that was wrenched on by Keith McCarty. So, it was this week in MX history where Rex Staten won his first national at Rio Bravo. In our announcements tonight, Jordan, what do we have coming up first? Vintage Motocross Radio. Last week, I had as my guest David Bailey. We've got some sound bites from that. Jordan, let's listen to a little bit about what David had to say.
I did a couple of races in Florida. Then the first big race I rode on the Kawasaki was the Supercross in Atlanta in 1980. And as I looked at the lineup for the heat race, it was just like 6 or 7 or 8 factory, Chuck Sun, Ken Howerton, Warren Reed, on and on. And I got the whole shot on a completely stock, brand new bike. I didn't really know that well, and made it into the main event. And then later that year, I won this support class during the Trans USA. So I delivered for them, and I was really happy to do that because they really kept me afloat when things were looking bleak.
What did Team Green actually do for you other than giving you the motorcycle? Was there any other financial backing, anything like that?
At that point, having bikes was huge.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I had 2 250s and a 4 whatever, like an open bike. Because it was, not a lot of extra money and stuff. I mean, the couple of nationals I went to on a Kawasaki in 1980, one was in Denver, one was in Atlanta, and I towed the bike with the front wheel off of it. And just bolted the axle through and tightened the pinch bolts so the axle was solid.
Yeah.
And then I U-bolted that to this big flat, hunk of metal that took over the trailer hitch. And then I rode my bike on the rear tire, took the chain off. And because it wouldn't fit in the car. That was for the gas can and my gear and my toothbrush. It was just very, very caveman, but I wanted to go to the nationals.
So you towed a KX with a knobby on it, on the street.
Yeah.
And
from Virginia to Denver and back by myself.
David Bailey had some great stories. My guest this Sunday is Sue Fish. Please join me at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time for Vintage Motocross Radio. Sue Fish, an amazing career, a women's national champion. She also went on to do a lot of stunt work in Hollywood, including on the movie Terminator. We're going to be talking about that and a whole lot more. That's this Sunday at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time at Vintage Motocross Radio. You've been hearing me talk about this bike on the show for a couple of weeks now. 1983 Honda CR250, and we are giving it away. If you want to get involved in the raffle, there's nothing to purchase, nothing to buy. Just go onto your email and email us at vmxqalive@gmail.com. You'll have an opportunity to win this bike. We're giving it away on the show December 23rd, 2020. Battle at the River this weekend. Saturday there's practice. On October 31st there's an open practice. On Sunday there's going to be a race. It is an armor race. Expect the regular armor classes. That is this Saturday and Sunday. Battle at the River up in Marysville. Be sure to be up there, and you'll get some photos from Deadmore Design. Is he doing the photos this week there, Jordan, too? Taking some pictures up there? Looks like he is? Well, we hope he is. If he's not taking pictures, somebody's going to be taking pictures up there. I'll be there on Saturday. T-shirts are still available. We're selling a lot of these things. There's not that many left, and now would be a good time. With Christmas just really, Christmas isn't that close. I kind of spoke out of turn there. But it's never a bad time to be a winner or be a buyer of Vintage Motocross Q&A T-shirt, just $22. Follow the link in the description of the show, and you can get your shirt just like that. Got my autograph on the back, the logo across the front. Vintage Motocross Q&A T-shirts, $21.99. Vintage Motocross Q&A sponsorship opportunities are still available. We've been talking about this for a while now, and the sponsors that we have, they're very, very happy with what's happening here, and we've got a couple of more people that are coming on board in the very near future. So if you have a business on the internet, on Facebook, that you'd like to advertise and reach a lot of people a week, and when I say a lot, I'm talking about 30,000, between 22 and 30,000 every week. Inbox me, I'll get you a proposal. We'll find something that's going to fit your budget. You can become a sponsor of Vintage Motocross Q&A. People will see it here on Facebook. They'll see it on YouTube. And we're going to be making some moves come the first of the year where you're going to be able to see it in some other places too. I just mentioned that up to 30,000 people a week. Yes, we did reach 30,000 a couple of weeks ago. On average, we're reaching between 21 and 23,000 people a week here on Facebook. It's a good time to get involved. Vintage Motocross Q&A, sponsorship proposal. Gino! I had to call the dog. The show's over. Thank you for joining me tonight at Vintage Motocross Q&A. I am your host, Joe Abati. I hope you'll join us next week, and don't forget to join us on Sunday, Vintage Motocross Radio. Gino, come on, boy! Oh, there he is, Gino! Good job, boy.